seconds.
Dark haze. Ladies of the night with eyes of red, vampires in the alleys where good men dread, wolfmen howling beneath the pale moon, but justice is coming and coming soon. From saloons to graveyards where evil sleeps, they walk among us, secrets they keep, nightmare hunters with souls ablaze, cleaning up this town through the dark haze. Themselves, yet they stand tall against the darkness, answering the call for every lost soul, every whispered prayer. They fight for the light in the midnight air. Dark haze. The night is young, the hunt begins. For against the darkness where hope never ends.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome to episode 409 of the Nightmare Hunter podcast. We took us a little break, needed to get some things done, work a few things out, but we are back and we're better than ever. And we're damn glad to see so many of you folks already in the chat tonight. There's a lot of folks and it's just getting bigger by the moment. Robbie, Doc, how the heck are you boys doing?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
Alive and above ground.
Sometimes that's all we can ask. But boys, before we jump into the description for tonight's show, I just wanted to take a quick second, let everybody know what's been going on. Took a little time off. Had to get some projects done. I got a brand new book out first book in a new series called Hangman's Legacy, The Mount Dora Incident. It's already at #1 in Western horror. It's eating up the charts. It's doing very well, and hope you guys will check it out. It's available in print, Kindle, and audio format. It'll be popping up in the chat frequently eloquently tonight as the mods put it up. Robbie just released not only a new book, but a author's edition of an old book. And if you haven't checked either of those out, you really need to check them out. His new book, Robbie, what's your new book called?
Blood of Algard. It falls into same territory as Balkus and his merry band.
Heart of Iron.
Yes.
In Heart of Iron. There's quite a few callbacks and some familiar characters, some new characters. So DA and I wanted to keep that world going because it's connected to this world. So,
and there will be more of that coming as well from my end.
Yep.
And Doc's book. Oh, sorry, Robbie.
I just want to say this one focused on the up world more than the dwarven culture,
which is really cool. I mean, it's another aspect of that same world, and I think you guys are really going to like it. Doc's new book's doing real well. In fact, I bumped him down a slot, and that's why I got number one in Western horror. Doc's at number 2 right now, with Dark Frontiers, The Vampire Chronicles, Angels of the Wilderness, and it is a really kick-butt book. You guys are really going to like it. If you haven't read it, you need to pick it up. Doc's well into his cups. I mean, Doc's well into the progress onto the next book, and hopefully book 2 of that will be out before too terribly long. And I also am just closing in on finishing codename Wild Hunt Leviathan Down. It is very close to being finished. But the reason I started out with books tonight, because that does kind of segue into our show tonight. You guys are very familiar with the fact that I do a lot of research when it comes to the books. Not only for the books, but for the shows. But when those two overlap, it becomes kind of something special. I started really digging into New Mexico lore when I started the Hangman's Legacy series. And the first one, Mount Dora Incident, is steeped in native lore. The second one, I wanted to kind of explore some of the mountain legends in New Mexico, and I started looking, obviously, for Bigfoot sightings in like the Sangre de Cristos and the Rockies, and that kind of led me to a bunch of different rabbit holes. And then I discovered a word I had never heard before, Stinale. I didn't know what it was. I found just a very small reference to it, and of course that piqued my interest. So it comes to find out there is Sasquatch type lore in the Sangre de Cristos dating back to the 1600s. Maybe even before that, because that's the earliest records. The rest of it was Native American oral tradition beyond that. But somewhere in the Sangre de Cristos, a Spanish shipment of gold disappeared and allegedly was attacked by upright bipedal hairy creatures that the Jicarilla Apache, the Taos Pueblo Indians, and the Ute all referred to as the Stinale, which means those who walk in shadow. And Kit Carson, back in 1845, wrote of attacks on caravans going through the Sangre de Cristos. Yes, that Kit Carson. He talked about seeing creatures up in those mountains. So this is not an isolated incident. And the more I dug into the Stinale, the more I wanted to incorporate that into the book. So the second book of the Mount Dora of the Hangman's Legacy series is going to be called Lost Gold of the Sangre de Cristos. I'm already well into it, about 75,000 words into it, and the plot's going to focus heavily around the Stinale. And tonight, I want to bring that information to you. Everything that we've learned, everything we've discovered, all the little fragments and historical tidbits that we've ran across over the last couple of months as I dug into these sightings. And that's where we're going to start tonight. These are true accounts from New Mexico's most haunted range, the shadows of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Not everything in those mountains is human. The Sangre de Cristo Mountains have always carried stories, some written, some whispered, some buried so deep in the archives that you can only find them if you know what you're looking for. But if you trace the pattern, the history of these mountains back far enough, you start to see the pattern, a pattern that stretches across 4 centuries, and a pattern that refuses to die. It begins in 1845 in the brittle pages of a long-defunct little newspaper in Santa Fe, New Mexico called the Santa Fe Gazette. A short article, really not much more than a paragraph, describing pale figures on ridges west of Cimarron. No explanation, no follow-up, just a quiet warning to travelers to avoid the timberline after dusk. 2 weeks later, another article appeared, same newspaper. This one mentioned a freight party that vanished somewhere between Taos and the Ponil. No bodies, no tracks, no sign of struggle, just wagons found abandoned and their contents untouched, as if the men just simply stepped into the trees and never came back. Then the journals. Not official reports, not the published accounts, the private journals of Kit Carson. The Kit Carson Museum is actually in Cimarron, New Mexico, right next to the Philmont Scout Ranch. These are the journal entries that Carson never really meant to be shared. And in those pages, Carson describes a night near the Ponil where he felt like he was being watched from the ridgeline. He wrote of a tall, pale figure standing perfectly still between two pines, not moving, not shifting, not reacting to the cold, just watching him. Carson knew the difference between raiders, animals, and something else, and in those private entries, he admitted that he'd seen something he couldn't name. But the story doesn't just start with Carson, it goes back even farther. The Ute and the Jicarilla Apache, they spoke of a mountain people who lived in the high timber. Tall, silent, pale as stone in the moonlight. A clan that avoided valleys and walked only where the trees thinned and the air grew thin and sharp. They refused to speak the name aloud. They warned the Spanish not to camp near the timberline. They told the early settlers that some of those ridges in the Sangre de Cristos were not meant for people. And then there's the expedition. A Spanish caravan's doomed push into the high country. A journey that ended with a wagon load of gold. Yes, a wagon load of Spanish gold abandoned somewhere in those mountains. After a night that no one would describe other than in the barest hints. A night of movement in the trees, a night of pale shapes of returning on the ridges. A night that drove hardened men, conquistadors, to flee the mountains and never return. Over 100 men went into that valley. Less than 30 of them came out. Centuries later, in 1923, there was an obscure ethnographer who published a book titled Uncatalogued Peoples of the Southern Rockies. Most of it's harmless anthropology, but buried in the final chapter is a really weird entry. A description of a mountain clan known only through second-hand accounts. Tall, lean, silent, seen only in the high timber, never approaching, but always watching. The author jokingly dismissed it as folklore, but the details are a perfect match for Carson's descriptions. And they also match those Santa Fe Gazette articles, and they match the tribal warnings. They match the Spanish caravan's terrified retreat, and they match modern encounters that we're going to talk about tonight. Because whatever Carson saw on that ridge in 1845, whatever the Spanish wrote about in their early journals, whatever the tribes tried to warn us about, whatever the Spanish ran from, people are still seeing it. Tall, pale, silent, and watching from the timberline. Tonight, we're going to go into those mountains, into the shadows that stretch across 4 centuries of sightings, into the stories that connect the past to the present, into the high timber where the watchers still walk. And before we begin, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to help support the show directly, get early access and behind-the-scenes content, help us with these investigations and keep them alive, consider becoming a channel member. Now, folks, take a breath, settle in, grab your blanket, and step with us into the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Incidentally, Sangre de Cristo means blood of Christ. Because these mountains remember, and not everything in those mountains is human. Doc, would you mind taking us into segment 1?
I would be honored, sir. This is the case file here is the Timberline Watcher of Cimarron Canyon. The first encounter takes us to the eastern slopes of the Sangre de Cristos just outside Cimarron, a place where the mountains rise fast and the canyons narrow into long corridors of shadow. The kind of country where sound travels strangely and the air feels colder than it should. This report comes from a man named Miguel, a man who grew up in the Moreno Valley, a man who knows the difference between a mule deer stepping through the brush and a predator stalking the ridge. He has spent more nights in these mountains than most people spend in their own homes. In late October, just after the first dusting of snow, he hiked into the Cimarron Canyon before dawn. He wanted to blast the upper timberline for elk and see what was there. The sky was still dark. The stars were sharp, and the cold had that metallic bite that only comes before sunrise in the high country. Now, he reached a clearing near an old rock slide and set up his tripod. The forest around him was silent. There was no wind. There were no birds. There was no movement. It was just a slow drip of melting frost from the branches. He scanned the ridge above him. There was nothing. He scanned the valley below. Still nothing. And then he swept the tree line to the west, and that's when he saw it. A tall figure standing between the pines, not moving. It wasn't shifting its weight, and it wasn't reacting to the cold. It was just standing there. And at first he thought it was just another hunter, maybe somebody in light-colored clothing, but the shape was wrong. It was too tall and it was too narrow. The proportions weren't like a person's. The shoulders were too high and the arms hung too long, and the head seemed like it tilted in a way that made his stomach tighten. Now, he lifted his binoculars, and the figure was pale. Not white like snow, but pale like bone. Pale like something that has never seen the light of the sun. It stood perfectly still, not breathing hard, not shivering, and not shifting its stance. It just watched him. Now, Miguel lowered his binoculars. He looked with his naked eyes, and the figure was still there. He wasn't seeing things. Same place, same posture, same impossible stillness. And he raised the binoculars again, and the figure was gone. No movement, no sound, no retreating shape, just empty trees. He scanned the ridge for several minutes and didn't see anything. The forest stayed silent, stayed quiet, stayed still. Even the air felt heavier. The cold seemed to press against his skin. He decided to pack up and leave, not because he was afraid, but he said it felt like the mountain itself wanted him gone, like the air had changed and like the forest was sitting there holding its breath. Now, he walked back to the trail, and he kept glancing over his shoulder, and he never saw that figure again, but he watched the entire way out. Every step, every turn, every moment he was under the shadow of those trees. And when he reached his truck, he sat in the driver's seat for a long time. His hands were shaking, and his breath was unsteady. And he told himself it was just the cold. It was just the altitude, and it was just his imagination. But he never went back to that ridge, and he never hunted alone in the Sangre de Cristos again. This is not an isolated encounter. This is not a one-off story. This is the first thread in a pattern that stretches across the entire range. And that thread's going to be woven into something even more terrific. Tall, pale, and silent, watching from the timberline. Now, as we move into these mountains, you're going to see that Miguel's story is not the exception. It's the introduction.
And Doc, you've been down through that area, haven't you? I know I have.
Yes, sir. Just recently, we were down there, and the Cimarron Canyon went through that. Beautiful.
That area that they call the Palisades. I'm pretty sure that's where where Miguel set up.
Yeah, Matt, dude, that is an absolutely gorgeous area. And the Spaniards who came in through Mexico, they named it the blood of Christ because when the sun is setting or rising, I'm sorry. The mountains, the pink granite turns almost like a crimson red, and so they called it the blood of Christ, the Sangre.
They're quite a sight to see, especially in at sunrise and sunset both, depending on what side of the mountains you're on.
Beautiful, yes, sir. So,
and one of the most breathtaking things that I remember about Cimarron Canyon is when you coming out of the after you enter on the Cimarron side, and when you run out of that canyon, and when you come around that last bend and look down over Eagle Nest, that lake and the town, I would love to have a cabin right there.
Next time I go down there, I'll take a good picture just from that spot because I know the exact spot you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, my breath catches every time I see that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
But that is a very thickly timbered area.
Yes, sir.
And what people don't realize is, we're not talking one or two mountains. We're talking a mountain range that spans more than a dozen counties and goes from northern New Mexico all the way up to almost central Colorado, where they join the Rockies.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's a misconception about how mountainous the desert Southwest is. The canyons, the ridges, the valleys, and that's something that was interesting to me was where did he see the creature? Obviously, the same thing we've talked about it every show. The ridge line,
high ground.
all of these suckers always seem to be spotted on the freaking ridgeline.
And the interesting part about the Sangre de Cristos is 90% of the sightings are at the tree line, like where the trees are starting to thin out.
Really?
These things stay in the high altitudes. That's why so few people see them.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is how much elevation changes. At Clayton, when you're in Clayton, the elevation's like 5,200 feet. When you get up into Cimarron, it's like 7,200 feet. By the time you reach Eagle's Nest, you're almost 11,000 feet.
Yeah, I was going to say you're like 10.8 up there, because like we live, Cimarron's roughly the same altitude. I mean, we live around 7,000 feet here, but it's a good altitude. But yeah, man, you start getting on up there, that's some high altitude. But you know, the thing too. Look how, I mean, its proportions are wrong. So what do you think the chest cavity, let's look at it from a biological standpoint. The chest cavity, what do you think that's going to do? It's going to be massive. Yeah, because it's got to have more little alveoli in there, a little more air sacs to grab a hold of whatever O2 is there.
Like we talked about with eagles having that that extra bladder inside their chest that they can take in more oxygen. So that's how they get above storms. You know, if a storm comes in, an eagle will just take in oxygen and fill that bladder in, go up above the storm, and it can cruise. You know, almost it's got those things that lock its wings in where it can basically just locked into a continuous glide pattern, and it'll just, you know, feed off that oxygen reserve. I wonder if it's something like that where they've got something that they have that just allows them to perform better at that type of elevation.
I don't know, man. I think it's probably just the physiological aspect of having bigger chest cavity, bigger lung capacity. Because if you look at it, and I'm going to use this as an example, if you look at the Quechua down in Peru, they live at 12,000, 13,000, 14,000 feet, and they're these little short people, but they've got these big, huge barrel chests. Like our average lung capacity for us is 2.5 to 3 liters. These cats have like between 3 and 5 liters per side, because they're and Robbie, you hit on it. They're such a high altitude, right? Just like that eagle, it has to have that extra O2. They don't have to have a bladder per se. They just have the added physical capacity there. Does that make sense?
So right after I discovered the name Stenale, like I said, I started doing some digging. But one of the things I did was I called a buddy of mine who still lives in New Mexico. He's half Navajo, and I called him and I said, "Hey, can I pick your brain on something?" And I've tried to get him to come on the show. He wants nothing to do with any of that. He says, "I'm not interested." And they said, "I'm interested in it, but he says, I'll watch, but I'm not coming on there." He said, "I don't want that kind of attention." But what he said was, I said, "Hey, I found something I want to ask you about." And it kind of dates back to New Mexico history. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Are you familiar with a word? With a word?" And I said, "I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong." But I spelled it to him. And then I said, "I think it's Stenale is what I said." He goes, "No, it's Stenale. And where did you find that?" He said, "That is not a word we say out loud often." He said, "That name is, you say that about as often as you say Skinwalker."
Oh, so it's one of those taboo words.
Yeah, he said, "You don't say that. You just don't say that." Of course, you know, they're saying Sangre de Cristos. They're not going to show up in Springfield, Missouri. Do your worst. But yeah, I really think I hit a nerve with that. He's like, "That's just not a word you hear in conversation, especially from a white guy." He said, he says, "In fact, the only time I've ever heard it spoken was stories from my grandfather."
Wow. So it goes back a minute.
Sound like it.
Yeah.
And that was when I knew I was onto something.
Huh.
Now, this encounter you just read, Doc Miguel.
Yeah.
That's not unusual. There are so many sightings that come from around that area. And here's the crazy part. The drier the year, the more the sightings.
Really?
Yep. Because the elk come lower.
They got coming down. That's it.
The elk come down to the valleys looking for water because the upper mountains are dry.
Well, we've always said follow the food source.
They follow the food.
100%.
So there's more sightings on those lower mountain trails because not a lot of hikers take those high mountain passes. Not anymore. There's not a whole lot of prospectors up there. There's not a whole lot of people that live in those deep upper mountain passes anymore. Or even travel through them, because once they cut the highways through, the rest of those passes pretty much got ignored. There wasn't any point to go through them.
Yeah, there's several people in the comments want to know how that's spelled. Can you type it into the comments?
Yes, I will copy and paste it into the comments. Give me a second to find it real quick. I know I've got it. I'll just copy and paste it straight into the comments instead of trying to spell it, because it's got like accent marks and I'm not sure how to pronounce them. Okay, I'm posting the word straight into the comments as it's spelled. But good luck finding it. I only found like one or two very brief mentions in texts. They weren't mentioned on websites. They were in old files. Apparently, it was a word that was bandied about in the 1840s, 1845, 1846, around there, by cavalry, by travelers, and by native trackers and native traders that operated into that area. Other than that, it's a ghost on the internet. I mean, I think it's going to start showing up more now that we're bringing it out. But as of now, there's just really not much about it. But hopefully we'll be changing that.
Not like we hadn't done that before.
Yeah. It is funny how we've kind of been the pace setter on a couple things. But again, these kind of sightings like that, not all that uncommon, even today. In fact, when I was a scout in Boy Scouts, when we would go camping up at Philmont, they used to tell stories about the hairy creatures up in the Sangre de Cristos. Of course, they called them Bigfoot. I'd never heard the word stenale before, but they called them Bigfoot type creatures. And the scoutmasters and other scouts would tell stories, and apparently there were a bunch of sightings up on those mountain trails.
But if those stories are coming from the white people, that's probably what you're going to hear about any of is Bigfoot type creature.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, some name that we're accustomed to hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Wyatt. Good to see you, brother.
Wyatt.
So Miguel's encounter by itself is pretty unsettling. A tall, pale figure watching from the timberline is more than enough to shake even the most seasoned hunter. But what makes his story impossible to ignore is this. It isn't unique. When you start laying these accounts side by side, hunters, hikers, ranch hands, search and rescue volunteers, the pattern becomes impossible to dismiss. Same shape, same silence, same impossible stillness, the same feeling of being watched from just inside the tree line. And here's the part that should make every one of you sit up a little bit straighter. These sightings didn't start in the last decade. They didn't start with modern hikers and trail cameras. They didn't start with social media. People have been seeing figures in the Sangre de Cristos for hundreds of years. Long before Miguel, long before the ranching families, heck, long before the first Spanish expeditions pushed north, long before any of us. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize that the shadows in these mountains have been there for a very long time. Long enough to leave their mark in journals, in oral histories, in warnings passed down through families who learned the hard way what lives up on those ridges. So let's widen the lens, shall we? Let's step back from the modern case files and look at the stories that came before them. The ones carved into the history of this range. The ones whispered by people who walked these valleys long before a map ever existed. Because if you want to understand what Miguel saw on that ridge, you have to understand what people before him were already trying to warn us about. Robbie, you want to take us into segment 2?
Yes, sir. Segment 2, the historical layer, warnings written in blood and stone. Long before Miguel saw the pale figure watching him from the timberline in the Sangre de Cristos, already had a reputation. Not the kind you find in the tourist brochures or trail guides. The kind that lives in the quiet spaces between generations. The kind that survives because people refuse to forget. The earliest written accounts came from the Spanish expeditions pushing north in the early 1600s. These were hardened men, soldiers, explorers, priests. They crossed deserts, mountains, hostile territory with a level of endurance most of us can't even imagine. But the Sangre de Cristos unsettled them. One journal from 1617 describes largas entre los
Sombras largas entre los pinos.
what he said. long shadows among the pines that move without wind. Another mentions,
Figuras blancas en la ladera.
what he said. White figures on the slopes watching the expeditions from the distance. The writer notes that men refused to camp near the timberline after dark. They believed the mountains were inhabited not by spirits, not by animals, but by something else. When the Spanish asked the local tribes about figures, the answers are always the same: a warning, a refusal to elaborate, a quiet insistence that some places were not meant for people. The Ute and Jicarilla Apache
The
had
Ute
named,
and the Jicarilla.
you're gonna have to start phonetically writing this stuff for me.
Let's just stop giving Robbie the ones with other languages in it.
I speak English and bad English, DA. You know this. And I ain't good at neither one of them. But they rarely spoke them aloud. They described them as tall, silent, mountain born. They said these figures lived in the high timber and came down only when the balance of the land was disturbed. Kind of like when it's real dry season.
Mm-hmm.
One elder told a trader in the 1800s they walk where the trees are thin. They watch the ridges. They do not come close unless they choose to. The trader who wrote that elder's voice shook when he said it. Frontier settlers in the 1800s added their own stories. Miners working the slopes near Red River reported seeing pale shapes standing on the ridges above their camps. Trappers in the Pecos wilderness spoke of being followed for miles by something that never broke cover. A homesteader near Taos claimed he woke one night and see a tall figure standing at the edge of his property, motionless, watching his cabin until dawn. These accounts stretch across centuries, different cultures, different languages, different eras, but the same description: tall, pale, silent, watching from the timberline. And here's the part that ties it all together. None of these groups, not the Spanish, not the tribes, not the settlers, believed these figures were ghosts or spirits. They believed they were people, not humans, but people. A mountain people, a clan that lived in the high timbers long before anyone else set foot in those valleys. A presence older than the trails, older than settlements, older than the names on the maps. A presence that never left.
And they're still reporting sightings to this day up in that area. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, having lived there, we lived down in that area for a long time. That is some very, very ruggedly dense terrain. You could get 100 yards off the trail, and if you didn't keep your wits about you, you'd get lost real easy. That is a very, very thick country.
It's rough terrain, very rugged terrain.
And the Sangre de Cristos are pretty unforgiving. You can start up one of those mountain trails, and in the span of an hour, you can change your altitude by over 1,000 feet and drop the temperature by 20 degrees. That is not the place you want to get off trail and get lost.
Yeah, they have people. Who get rescued there and get treated for hypothermia every summer. That want to go hiking and they're not prepared.
And it's easy to do. It's easy to it's easy to underestimate the area you're up against. If you're from someplace like here in Missouri, I mean, we've got some pretty woolly country and it's pretty rugged, but you're not going to drop and raise an elevation more than about five to 600 feet up or down either way over the course of the area. Yeah, we've got some pretty rugged valleys and hilltops, but nothing like the Sangre de Cristos. You can seriously change your altitude fast up there, and a lot of people just are not prepared for how sudden the environment is going to change on you. And if you get above the tree line, you can freeze to death in the dead of summer.
Yep, Mother Nature don't care. Just gonna keep on Mother Naturing.
Yep. Well, that's people talk about that all the time in like desert survival. Most people don't realize how cold it gets in the desert at night. They think desert and they think heat. But you can freeze to death in the desert.
I can tell you up front how quick we were 122 in the afternoon, and that night we dropped down to 43.
Harold, I really think that the Stenale are a people. I really do. Every description that the natives in the area have said, they've talked about them as just another tribe that lives in the high mountains and does not come down. So I think they're intelligent. I think that they've got their own rules, their own territories, and they don't come out of them unless things change drastically at higher elevations.
So, do you think that they're another offshoot of the Bigfoot, like Gugway? There's the Gugway, which is different, and you got the other ones in the Pacific Northwest, which are different.
Well, you know how we've made note that in different parts of the country, some of them are more feral, more prone to violence.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Stenale are at the other end of the spectrum. They're more human-like. They're more intelligent. I think they could actually be communicated with if you didn't break some law going into their territory, because they've existed up there since before our ancestors were even on this continent. Yeah, you're walking into an area where you're living in their world. It's we can go up there and assume that they're going to behave like we expect them to, because that's their world, that's their territory. Yeah. We're walking into their home.
And for the most part, it seems like the two encounters that we've talked about, they've just been observers. So they haven't been aggressive or anything, just like, hey, we're here, let you know it.
Now, there are some cases where it has crossed over into violence.
So, piggybacking off some of our other stuff, what zone would this fall in?
Considering the military occupations around there and like reservations and everything that are in close proximity, I'd almost say this is another zone echo. I mean, since the late 1600s, I think there's 300 or 400 people have gone missing in those mountains.
Ooh.
Not all at once, not even in the same years, but in small groups, handfuls. People have gone missing for centuries up in those mountains, just gone without a trace.
Yeah.
So even if they're not involved, let's remove the Stenale from the equation whatsoever. There is still enough deep valleys and mountain cuts where you could lose a town and not find it.
Dang.
I mean, just looking at that on the map, we're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of square miles, not just a couple of mountains in a mountain range.
Right.
This is an entire mountain range. It's a subsection of the Rocky Mountains, and they span, hundreds, if not thousands of square miles. In fact, I think that's a good question to consult the Googles. I'm going to ask it how many square miles there are in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. How many square miles are in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains? 3,500 square miles.
That's a lot.
The mountain range itself extends roughly 250 miles in length from Poncha Pass in Colorado to Santa Fe, Las Vegas, New Mexico. That's a lot of land. You think you couldn't get lost in 3,500 square miles of mountain wilderness? And that's what it is. It's wilderness.
Real easy if you don't know what you're doing.
Super easy.
Yeah.
You could get lost in the first mile going into that place
100%.
and never be found again.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
Get turned around. Done.
To kind of put that into a little bit of perspective, 3,500 square miles doesn't sound much, but that's 220,803 square acres. And that's just in Colorado. The entire Sangre de Cristo wilderness area is over 200,000 acres. Extending from Poncha Pass all the way into New Mexico. All told, the complete from end to end central New Mexico to central Colorado. Anybody want to guess how many square acres there are in the complete Sangre de Cristos? 11,003,520.
And DA, if you want to put it in even more perspective, how many acres was that? 3,500 acres of
3,500 square miles.
3,500 square miles. Rhode Island, 1,545 square miles.
Bigger than the state of Rhode Island. All told, Sangre de Cristos, when you put it in square miles, the complete Sangre de Cristo range is 17,193 square miles.
Wow.
And to further that on what Doc said, you could pretty much put Rhode Island in the middle of that and
it'd be gone.
Let the forest grow up around it, and you never see Rhode Island again.
I mean, 17,000 square miles and 1,500 square miles. Holy crap, dude!
That's a drop in the bucket.
A drop, absolutely. Wow.
It's just impressive how big those mountains are. And when you look at them compared to the Rockies, they're nothing but a little offshoot on the Rockies.
Mm-hmm. I see Pikes Peak from my window every day. And that is
the folks that say there's no habitat left for these creatures to live in, that's why they say they couldn't possibly exist because there's no habitat. Doc, throw the flag on that play because right there in the Sangre de Cristos is enough to hide a sizable habitat. I think Doc's finding the BS flag. Oh, no, he knew where it was. BS flag. Flag on the play.
Got to pull that flag every now and then.
Man, that is just crazy how big that area is.
Yeah.
And again, sightings have been going back to at least the 1600s, longer if you count Native American oral tradition.
And tell them how much that land has never even been touched by us.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you, there's mountain passes and mountain peaks and that have never had a human foot on them. It is just so rugged.
Holy crap! Cole said the same thing. So much area never been touched. Yep.
Well, how many times have you said, DA, that just in the Mark Twain, that there's plenty of area in the Mark Twain that people have probably never stepped foot on?
Oh yeah, I guarantee you there are places in the Mark Twain today that nobody's been.
Yeah.
I mean that just by itself is over just around 3 million acres. And if you run that up against the Ozark National Forest, because they do kind of connect, they come within pretty close to each other. So if you add those two together, we're looking around 5 million acres.
Speaking of that, did you hear that Cades Cove has been closed?
Cades Cove, without explanation, Cades Cove was shut down, as well as parts of the Smokies.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I've been up to Cades Cove many times.
I've been
Me too.
many times.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Dorothy Wade says my brother just moved to Vegas and he can see snow-covered mountains from his house. If you drive through Cimarron Canyon, and if you ever find yourself near Cimarron, New Mexico, drive through the canyon. It is worth it. But there are points in that canyon when all you can see is the road and up on both sides. There are mountains looming above you on both sides. Doc, can you imagine being a cowboy in those days when they used to drive cattle through that canyon?
Angie and I were talking about that when we went down there because we stayed at St. James. And I was like, dude, you got to know this country because, like you said, I mean, what if you ended up driving your herd into a box canyon and you got
Trying to turn them around, get them out of there.
Turn them around and then go 20, 30 miles. I mean, miles.
That is a maze of mountains. If you didn't know the path you're supposed to stay on, you could vanish.
Absolutely, man. And that happened all the time back then. Dudes would get turned around down there and take that left turn at Albuquerque, and end up in a freaking dead end somewhere.
Well, at least there in that canyon, they have if you have the sense to follow the Cimarron River, it'll take you to Eagle Nest. But if you got away from that river, if you can't hear that river anymore, you're in the wrong canyon.
Amen. That's it, buddy.
Can you imagine what it would have been like, say, 1850, riding up out of that canyon and coming over that ridge to see that lake down in that valley?
Man. Or coming up out of a canyon and seeing a bunch of jicarilla around you. On the ridge. I think I'd be more worried about those fellas. You know what I mean?
You know what I would have said? You don't want me. I ain't got no hair.
I'm a bad trophy. Yeah.
Miss Linnaeus giving us the 10-minute warning. We got about 10 minutes until ad time, so let's keep talking a little bit. We're not going to jump into segment 3 quite yet. We'll head into segment 3 after the top of the hour. So let's kind of continue the conversation for a couple minutes because I like I said, I hate to jump into anything new until after we clear the commercials. That whole area is loaded with history. You got the St. James Hotel right there in Cimarron. You've got the Philmont Scout Ranch. You got Kit Carson's. Kit Kat, good God. Got Kit Kats on my brain. You got Kit Carson's museum and old cabin right there next to the ranch. You've got dozens of trails that go up through those mountains and have gone for years. Got the Angel Fire Ski Resort, Eagle Nest, Red River, the old ghost town of Elizabethtown. There's Taos, the Pueblo right there. Getting on up to Red River. That's just an incredibly beautiful area. And then, of course, you look back in the day, the old Colfax County War, that raged over cattle grazing rights, basically, throughout the county of Colfax.
Yep. I mean, where we stayed at the Cimarron Hotel, there used to be a stage stop there that was, all points southwest. Doc Holliday, Bat Masterson, Virgil Morgan Earp, Wyatt Earp,
Jesse James,
Billy the Kid. They all came through that area, which is amazing. So,
in fact, allegedly, Frank and Jesse stayed at the St. James Hotel when they were there trying to recruit Billy the Kid into the gang.
They did, because I stayed at in the Jesse James room.
That area is just so rich in history.
Yeah,
and
cool.
And you cannot engage the history of New Mexico without looking at the kind of paranormal and the occult history as well, because stories like these, when you hear a Bigfoot story like here in Missouri, people are like, "Oh, cool." We all get excited about Bigfoot stories, but down there, it's just part of the oral tradition. It doesn't really raise eyebrows. Ranchers don't bat an eye. They don't just immediately call you nuts. Down there, it's just something else. It's part of the local folklore, and things like that have been seen for a long time.
Concur. As Robbie said so eloquently, what he said.
The funny thing is a lot of folks that have never really been into the Southwest like that don't really know that it's really a world unto itself.
Oh, dude.
It is so different from the rest of the United States.
Yep.
The food culture, the mentality, the work ethic, it is just its own little world down there, and it's amazing. And I fell in love with the Southwest living down there, and part of my heart's still there. As much as I love my Ozarks, part of me still wonders those mountain passes.
Yeah, I love the Southwest, man. It's Angie put it very well. She called it a rugged beauty. It's got a
Heck,
very,
there's still bullet holes in the walls of the Eckland.
yeah.
They had some bad hombres pass through that town.
Yeah, same in Tombstone. There's bullet holes in the floorboards and the ceilings and the walls at the Oriental. Not the Oriental, the Birdcage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was rough, man. Rough as a cob, as my daddy used to say.
Rougher than John Wayne toilet paper.
Yeah, and you're right, Long Queen. It's true. It's sad how much we've lost because no one wrote down those stories, and the younger generations blew off the old oral histories and forgot about them. Yeah, how much have we missed over the years? You know what I mean? That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to go back as a kid and just listen to my grandparents and my aunts and uncles telling those stories again.
Amen to that.
Just things I just didn't pay attention to as a kid.
Right.
It's amazing how much relevance they get as you get older. Like, man, I wish I could have heard those stories again. Sat there with a recorder and got it all on tape.
Just to be a fly on the wall. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One more time, so you'd truly appreciate that oral history, because I think, we were all young. I remember I used to ask my daddy, tell me about the good old days or the olden times, So, because he grew up in the Great Depression. He grew up in the 30s.
Hmm.
And so...
Yeah, my dad was born in 24. My mom was born in 28. Yeah, they used to talk about the Depression.
Yeah. And then one of my grandkids asked me to tell them about the good old days the other day, because I was born in the late 1900s.
Did you tell them about the 80s?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Back in 1981.
We call that
the Wild West.
We call that the boom of 81.
Your parents would wake you up at 7, feed you cereal, open the back door, and say, "Get out! Don't want to see you till sundown."
Yeah, if we didn't have access to the garden hose, we'd all be dead now.
Dang right. And you'll go out on your bikes and hoping like crazy somebody's mom will make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for everybody.
Right.
We survived.
And when the gopher lights come on, you got to get home, because that's when the monsters come out.
Them old yellow lights.
Old sulfur lights.
Exactly.
Yeah, when those things start cracking on, back door comes open, mom starts hollering, your butt best be in the house for supper.
Yep. Them was the good old days. Dorothy Wade, Dot, does a tombstone epitaph still exist? Yes, ma'am, it sure does. And you can actually go online and get a subscription to it, or give them a call, and you can get a paper from them.
Well, for those of you who have read the Mount Dora incident already, I appreciate you guys, picking it up. It's brand new. It's only been out. It ain't even been out a week yet. But I hope you guys check it out, because this series is very near and dear to me, because I've been telling Doc, I think since I knew him, that one of these days I was going to write a book series set in Clayton. And I was waiting for the right story and the right characters. And this book just hits different for me. I honestly say, and I'm not just saying this, folks, I honestly think this is the best thing I've ever written. And I think it's my magnum opus. I don't know. I'm going to try to top it with the second book, and I'm like 70,000 words, almost 80,000 words into the second one, and I'm really hoping that I can continue to top it. But at this moment in time, the Mount Dora incident is the single best piece of writing I've ever done.
I agree. I told you it was your big opie. I did. I said this is definitely, I think it's your magnum opus. I believe that. And yeah, I remember me and you started talking about that when I told you I'd gone through New Mexico, and you're like, "What part did you take?" And I told you, and we talked about Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
So
they still got the big sign says that's the home of Charmaine James
on both sides of town, son.
Yeah, her parents used to live out there by that feedlot out toward Guyman.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah, I went to middle school and grade school with Charmaine.
Didn't you say who was it on
like
that
4-time world champion barrel rider? Or
yeah,
barrel racer.
11 time.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah,
she's a hell of a rider.
Didn't you say one of your family members on that gas station that shut down there on that northwest corner?
My dad ran it, and I used to work at that gas station in the summers,
I thought
pumping gas and checking oil for folks.
That's
It was a
pretty,
full service station back then. I ran the pumps.
well, you know, if y'all can get out here before we move back to the south, I'd love for us to go on a little road trip. That'd be fun.
Oh, yeah. Take you guys down there and show you the places that I remember.
Stay at the Eckland.
Oh, yeah, definitely eat at the Eckland.
That'd be cool.
Boys, we got less than a minute till we've got to take a quick break to as Race likes to say, pay the bills. So, folks, this will be a great time for you guys to top off that coffee, stretch your legs, walk the dog, shake the dew off the lily if you get my drift, and give us just a minute while we take a quick pause, and we will be right back after some words from our sponsors. So, thank you, folks, and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Dot Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The new book. In a world where monsters still walk the earth, one author dares to face them. From the brutal cryptid horror of the Apex Predator series to the Ozark legends that stalk the night in Lakeview Man, from the elite warriors of codename Wild Hunt to the relentless investigations of the Nightmare Hunter and the frontier terror of Dark Frontiers. When the Dead Rise, the Ragnarok Rising saga unleashes pure zombie apocalypse fury. And across the stars, war rages in the Lost Legion and Man's Marauders. And in the realm of myth and steel, the world of Vanguard calls to those born for legend. Cryptids, zombies, sci-fi warfare, epic fantasy. This is the universe of D.A. Roberts.
And folks, we are back. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Doc, you want to segue us into segment 3?
I will be happy to. So these historical accounts just aren't isolated curiosities. They're not random stories scattered across time, because when you line them up beside the modern encounters, Miguel's included, there's a pattern that starts to emerge. There's a pattern that stretches from the earliest Spanish journals to the hikers and hunters of today. The same mountains, the same ridges, the same pale watchers. And if you want to understand what that pattern means, you have to look at the encounters not as individual stories, but as data points, as pieces of a larger shape, as pieces of a puzzle, a shape that becomes impossible to ignore once you start to see it clearly. So in segment 3, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to go to map the sightings. We're going to track the behavior, and we're going to follow the ridge lines and the timberline corridors, and we're going to uncover the patterns that no one noticed, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. DA, take us into segment 3, please, sir.
No, I can be happy to. So when you lay these encounters out across a map of the Sangre de Cristos, something remarkable starts to happen. The stories stop feeling like isolated events. They start forming a shape. a shape that stretches from the Pecos Wilderness to Wheeler Park and from Cimarron Canyon to the timber above Taos. A shape that suggests intelligence, territory, and behavior. And the first thing you notice is the elevation. Every encounter, either modern or historical, happens between 8 and 11,000 feet. Not in the valleys, not in the meadows, always in the high timber, always where the trees thin and the ridge lines get sharp. The second pattern is distance. These figures never approach directly. They stay just inside the tree line, far enough away to remain silhouettes, and just close enough to be seen. They pace, they watch, they track movement without even revealing their own. The third pattern is the silence. Not the natural quiet of a mountain morning, a deeper silence, a silence that feels imposed. Hunters report that the forest goes still before a sighting. We've had that happen to us. Birdsong stops. Wind dies. Even the insects go quiet. It's as if the mountain itself is holding its breath. We've had that happen to us in a number of places, including Moon Valley.
Yes. Thank you.
The fourth pattern is the terrain. Every encounter clusters around ravines, old mining cuts, collapsed adits, narrow timberline corridors, and steep shadowed slopes. Places where the land drops away fast, places where a tall figure like that could vanish in seconds, places where a person couldn't follow. And then there's the fifth pattern, the one that really kind of ties everything together. They never come down. Not once. Not in 400 years of accounts. Not in modern sightings. Not in tribal warnings. Not in the Spanish journals. Not even in the frontier stories. Whatever they are, they belong to the high country, and they stay above the world of people. They watch from the ridges. They move through the timberline like it's their home. And here's the part that should make everybody you will really sit up and pay attention. When you overlay the sightings with the old tribal boundaries, the Spanish expedition routes, the early homesteads, you see that the encounters always happen in the same corridors, the same ridges, the same shadowed slopes. It's not random. It's not coincidence. It's a territory that's been occupied by the same creatures for centuries, a territory that was never abandoned, and a territory that modern hikers and hunters only pass through by accident. And when you see that pattern clearly, when you trace the sightings across the spine of the Sangre de Cristos, you realize something very unsettling. These figures aren't wandering. They're not lost. They're not displaced. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. That is their environment, and they're part of it. The elevation between 8 and 11,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take an expedition down in Sangre de Cristos, I know exactly where to start.
7,995 feet.
Right around 8,000 feet. You know what that would put us right in the heart of? Ponil Peak.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right by the Ponil, right where Kit Carson had his sighting. And that ain't exactly on the beaten path, boys. That's going in on ATVs or horseback.
That would be awesome.
Hell yeah, wouldn't it?
I could trailer down my Razor.
Yeah. Well, guarantee you we ain't sneaking up on them on a Razor.
No, but I got a belt fed mount on it too.
We ain't sneaking up on them no matter what.
Yeah, you're not going to sneak up on them. It's like trying to sneak up on you in your living room. You know where everything's at.
Right. Yeah. That would be interesting, man.
Harold Goodell says, Doc, we miss your pup.
Oh, yeah. I'm just, Harold, whenever Angie's gone, I'm the spare human. So he's upstairs with her right now. I'm down in the basement. He's upstairs with her, as a second skin, as he is to her, like a little sucker fish.
I think my dog Harley. I think he was a Norse warrior in a past life. I think his name was Snorri Jonsson because all he does is snore and yawn. In fact, he's right over there doing it right now. He's like right down there.
Maybe Doc was too, because I just named him Fart Johansson. Because he'll sit there and crop dust you.
He is all racked out. comfy, buddy? He ain't looking at me. He don't care what I'm talking about. He's asleep.
Doc will come up there and get it right between me and Angie and start lay on his back. With his feet up like that, just start snoring. She said sometimes she didn't know who's snoring louder, me or him. So he snores.
Yeah, Harley can rattle the window panes when he really gets to snoring. He snored himself awake a few times.
It's so funny when they do that, man. It really
I do
is.
that
What was that?
Yeah, he one night, and this is no joke. He was laying on his bed. He's got a Serta bed. Yeah, the dog's got a Serta sleeper bed. He's laying on his Serta bed over by the end of the couch over there next to the TV, Doc, and he let a fart go that was so loud he woke himself up and barked at it. He jumped up, arr, arr, like I was you, idiot.
I've done that. I'm just kidding. I'm not though.
Gotta love your dogs, man.
They're
funny. Characters.
Ooh-wee. Mercy day. I got the vapors.
Doc done vapor lock.
But what would you guys think about doing an expedition up into those mountains?
I'd love to.
Okay.
I mean,
I think
honestly,
that would be fantastic.
Dude, it's only 3.5 hours from my house, man.
As Doc
It's like a trip to St. Louis for me, that kind of distance.
win.
Yeah, say when.
Say when. I mean, literally. 3.5 hours, dude, and we're there. It's a straight shot right down I-25, and you bang west on this little county road.
You go down through Raton Pass.
I come down. I come down through there on 25, right as I'm crossing over into New Mexico.
Well, that is a place you don't want to be in when the snow comes.
No, sir. I mean, it's not a high pass. That's the thing about it. It's not even 8,000 foot. Like some of the passes out here, Eisenhower Tunnel's like over 11,000 on I-70. But dude, yeah, it's not even 8,000 foot, but man, it locks that interstate down every flipping winter.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a nasty, nasty area to be in because it's just fog gets thick through that pass in that valley.
And that's definitely a place you better keep a winter survival kit in your car if you're going through that pass in the wintertime. Because a lot of time those storms hit that pass with very little warning.
I mean, yeah, and the roads are so curvy because you're following a river there. It's like a Scotsman laid them things out. You know what I mean? So
staggering through.
Yeah, exactly. Hillary, yes, I am. We're planning on moving within the next 18 to 24 months back to the SIP, back to the crooked letter state. So,
crooked letter I.
Yeah, it's too expensive out here. It's hiring a cat's butt. So can't afford it.
I can't say that'll blame you. I mean, getting back to your roots anyway, going back to Mississippi.
Yeah, get back home, baby. Plus, there's, it's the same land we're moving to, the same land that my brother had his encounter on.
Yeah.
So we had talked about that. I would love for y'all, and it's not a long drive. We talked about that. Robbie and DA went out on the show. We could all meet up down there.
Yep,
that'd be fun.
We spent about 7 hours from me. Yeah. I think about 8 and so from DA.
And Honey Island Swamp ain't too far from there either.
A lot of good investigating territory.
Well, because see, my brothers know about Honey Island Swamp more than I do, and they live down there. So yeah.
Well, but folks, when we're talking about this area, the pattern's pretty clear once you really look at it. And you can look at websites like the BFRO and stuff and look at the sightings in that area. And even today, there's still lots of sightings in those mountains. But the pattern doesn't just end there. If it ended there, it'd be enough to raise questions. But it doesn't. Because once you understand the territory, the behavior and the history of that area, you were only left with really one question. Who are they? Not what, who? Because every culture that lived in those mountains, every tribe, every settler, every explorer, all described them the same way. They're not spirits, not monsters, not animals. They called them a people, a mountain people, a clan that lived in the high timber since long before the boot touched those ridges. And in segment 4, we're going to talk about them directly, and we're going to name them. We're going to explore what little we actually know, and we're going to introduce you to the ones who walk the timberline, the Stinale. Doc, you want to take the next segment?
Yes, sir. So 200 years of vanishings in the high country. If the Stinale were the only mystery in the Sangre de Cristos, the mountains would already be unsettling enough. But the deeper you look in a historical record, the more you realize the Watchers are only one part of a much larger pattern. Because people have been disappearing in these mountains for more than 200 years, and that's documented. The earliest documented cases come from 1821 when a trapper named Malachi Turner, I like that name, vanished near the Upper Pecos. Now, his camp was found intact. His rifle was leaning against a tree. His tracks led toward a narrow ravine and simply stopped. There was no blood. There's no sign of struggle. There's no explanation. Now, fast forward to 1845. And the Santa Fe Gazette reported a freight party. I mean, several, could be more, several freight wagons and teams that vanished between Taos and the Ponil. The wagons were found abandoned. The mules were still tied, but the men were all gone. Now, Kit Carson mentioned this incident in his private journal, noting that the timberline above the site felt wrong and that he saw a pale figure watching from the ridge. Okay, kind of established a pattern here. So in 1883, a homesteader named Jacob Runnels disappeared near Red River. His wife reported hearing something moving around their cabin at night. Heavy footsteps, slow breathing. Sound familiar, y'all? She said Jacob went out to investigate and never returned. He was gone like a fart in the wind. So searchers found his lantern still burning on the porch. That's how quick it was. And in 1911, a survey crew working near Wheeler Peak lost one of their men. He walked 50 yards from the camp to relieve himself and never came back. The snow around the area was undisturbed. The crew chief wrote in his log that he felt watched from the tree line the entire night. In 1952, a hunter from Las Vegas, New Mexico, vanished near the timberline near the Tres Ritos. His tracks led up a slope and ended on a cluster of boulders. Search and rescue teams found no sign of him. And one volunteer later said he saw a tall, pale shape standing on a ridge at dusk, but he kept it to himself for years. And in 1978, 2 hikers disappeared near the Valle Vidal. Their tent was found zipped from the inside. Their packs were still there. Their boots were lined up neatly by the fire pit. The only tracks around the site were long, narrow impressions that did not match human feet. And in this century, 2003, a backpacker from Colorado vanished near timberline above the Taos ski valley. His last photo recovered from his camera shows a ridgeline at sunset. And if you brighten the shadows, you can see a pale figure standing between the trees, motionless and watching. Now, across 2 centuries, pattern doesn't change, only the time does. And people vanish in the same elevation band, in the same corridors, and the same shadowed slopes where the Stinale walk. But here's the part that matters. The disappearances don't match the Watchers' behavior. The Stinale avoid people. They don't approach camps, and they don't descend in the valleys. And they don't initiate contact, which means the vanishings point to something else, something deeper in the mountains, something the Stinale themselves have been watching for generations, because the Watchers aren't the cause, they're the warning. So that whole observer thing was pretty spot on in more ways than one, wasn't it? Well, raise my rent.
One thing you're going to find that riddles those mountains? Deep caves. And what is it we've said about deep caves?
Yep. Dude. Now that.
And what runs from basically the Sangre de Cristos to Clayton? The Raton Clayton volcano field,
Dude,
which means miles and miles of magma tubes.
If you go out there, if you drive up that road, there's volcanic rock all over the place. Hell, Capelin is a old extinct volcano. So there's all kinds of. So where there's volcanoes, there's geothermal vents, there's lava tubes, there's all kinds of passageways formed under that thermal stress over the years. So,
Sierra Grande. Sierra Grande is an extinct volcano. Then you've got Capulin, and you've got 2 or 3 other little ones. Heck, Rabbit Ears, just outside of Clayton. They're both volcanic upheavals.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Rabbit Ears. Yeah, it's crazy. Guess Rabbit Ears is right outside Clayton, isn't it?
Just a few miles.
Yeah. So
I've been up on top of both of them.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah. So I mean, if they got all that underground passageway, that's plenty of hind spot. But so, are there enough of these stinelay to watch it, or do they just do you think they focus on a hot spot?
Maybe they stay where the worst of it is. There's got to be a reason they stay to the high mountains.
And because if they're seen, it's not because they're looking for you. It's probably because they're looking for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And you just happen to be there at the time that there's something else looking. So do you think, let's talk about this. This makes another good point, I think. Are they prey to whatever they're looking out for?
Maybe.
Or is it a competition thing?
Competing for the same resource?
Yeah, maybe.
It may just be a case of really grizzly bears don't actively hunt humans. But if you've got a set of ear pods in and hiking along in your Birkenstocks and you round a corner and run into one, it's going to eat you.
Right.
It's just going to go, look, it's delivery.
Is that DiGiorno?
DoorDash.
Yeah.
Birkenstock Dash.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, opportunistic.
Yeah, they won't pass up a meal.
Like, I mean, hey, I didn't call Uber, but I'm not going to turn down the free delivery.
Don, that's the real question, brother.
Don has a good question. Or do they prey on them?
Who hunts who in those high elevations?
It's
because
rabbit season.
You get into those thick cuts and those ravines, you could disappear and never be found again.
Oh, dude. Absolutely.
How many old mines are up there that we don't even know?
Dear God. I will say this, man. I've got on one of my GPSs that I take when I travel up the mountains. When this area, it's up near Kingston Peak, Kingston Pass, up near Rollinsville. It's got like the pick and the shovel, the cross pick and shovel to indicate a mine. Hundreds.
There are mines all over the place.
This is just like a little square mile area, It's everywhere, man.
Right as you pull out of my driveway, Doc, and head down toward Cherry Street.
Yeah.
Where one of the road kind of makes that little dog leg
curve
right on to the left over there where that empty lot sits. That's an old nickel mine.
Holy.
Yeah, we thought it was a sinkhole when we first moved in. And I talked to a buddy that works over at county. He's like, "Yeah, it's technically a sinkhole. It's an old collapsed nickel mine."
Shut the front door.
I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna let my dog play over there." He says, "I wouldn't go down in there if I was you."
No, holy.
He said, "Because you might fall into a hole we can't find you in."
Dang, that's nuts. Huh?
Yeah, there's a nickel mine in my neighborhood.
Daggone. Bryce Edwards, Doc, is your second book out yet? No, sir.
How close are you, Doc?
Huh?
How close are you?
One chapter in the epilogue. I'm just going through and refining things. So, yeah.
I sent out a big update last night on Leviathan Down. to the alphas, and everybody that's reported in's liked it so far.
I have to read that this weekend.
I hope you like it. I'm waiting to hear what Clint has to say.
All right.
You could tell his mind was in two different places, though. In one part, particularly.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty. I was really proud of that entire chapter. I thought the tension was very high, and knowing him the way I do, I can see him acting just like that.
Looking for some borscht.
Yeah. John Wayne Gates says, "Howdy, folks! Just finished DA's newest book last night. Made me love my big Chevy truck even more. Nothing better than the windows down, listening to the stroker wind up. Heck yeah! That truck in that book is a character unto itself. It truly is.
The Duke is a bad son of a gun. I ain't gonna lie. Because
I love that truck.
When I read the description, I was like, I wanted to do, I was doing my Hulk Hogan. Hell yeah, brother! I mean, that was freaking awesome.
If I hit it big, I'm going to build that truck. I'll search the all the lower 48 looking for body parts, and I'm going to build that truck.
That would be a hoss.
Big old 460 Ford in it. Get about 6 gallons to the mile, not 6 miles per gallon.
6 gallons to the mile. Yeah.
Cruise all the way to the next gas station.
Yeah. You better have an aux tank in that thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. Probably our third one. Cost me $180 to drive across town.
They hauling a freaking water buffalo full of fuel.
Yeah, but I guarantee you fire that thing up, your neighbors are going to know it.
Man. And, I guarantee you, too, something like that, you lock that sucker in 4 high, it's going to burn all the tires off.
Oh, yeah, it'll roast them all.
It'll smoke them good, man. I like me a good V8 sound. Oh, well, I don't have none.
Would y'all like to see the new cover, for those of you who haven't seen it?
Yes.
Well, I will pop it up here. And this is the new cover for the newest book. Hangman's Legacy, the Mount Dora Incident. And that's the Duke right there. Or at least a reasonable facsimile. It's not exactly right, but it was as close as we could get it with the program we were using.
It'll do in a pinch.
It'll get her done.
Yes, sir. Sure will.
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna like Mount Dora Incident, and I think you'll like the next one too, which is going to be called I think what is that stupid thing called? Lost Treasure of the Sangre de Cristos, and it ties into that Spanish that story about the Spanish gold shipment getting lost up there. It ties into the main characters. It actually, when I started finding that, it just kind of fit with everything I'd already started building in the first book. So it was one of those really kind of serendipitous moments when everything just kind of fell together. And you guys know I love using real history details, real backgrounds for these books, and the real history almost just perfectly lined up. I was really excited the way it just fell into place. Roxanne says she could see herself driving that truck.
Hey, DA, I'm going to send you a picture. Can we send it to your phone or to your email?
You want me to show it on the air?
Sure.
Okay, well then send it to my email, because if you send it to my phone, I ain't gonna be able to do it.
Okay.
Which email are you sending it to? The DA?
Yeah. Let me get to it.
All right, then I'll open up my mail. Just let me know when you got it sent.
Okay. And
Nick, you're absolutely right. Robbie did a bang up job on Blood of Valgard. Great book. Kind of reminds me of the old Robert E. Howard stories, kind of that Blood of Conan kind of thing.
I tried.
I think you did more than try, brother. That was really good.
yeah. All right, I sent it.
All right, waiting for the little electronic postman to make it.
Sent it on Yahoo, so it's more Pony Express. Those of you who know how that works.
All right, I got it. I got to pull up the image.
Okay.
So you want to explain this image, Doc?
What you think?
Let me explain.
That take too long. Let me summarize.
Yes. Let me sum up.
Oops. God dang it.
Now,
Hold
what he
on.
says in class is, let me explain you.
Let me explain you. Lucy, you got some explaining to do.
All right, there we go.
All right. There's the cover for book 2, y'all. Dun, dun, dun. So,
So we know who that is. We can see the resemblance. But who are these handsome fellows on either side of it?
so off to your left there, or yeah, to my right, your left. That's Seth Bullock, and that is Declan, and then that is Jed.
Got Declan on the street howitzer, I see.
I do, sir. And that picture is Doc in the middle, and that's just all the angle because I'm way shorter than all the other dudes. So always shorter than the other dudes. That cat in the back, if you look, he's a new character. He's old, and if you look at his symbol on his clasp, on his coat clasp there, you might recognize its similarity to some of the books that you've read in some other series by another dude that's in here. And Robbie, you mentioned them too, do you not?
It sure does.
Yep.
So both of y'all, thank you, Miss Roxanne. Both of y'all, if you look at it, it's kind of eating its own tail. If you can open it up. So thank you, Don. So there's going to be some stuff again, some more interlocking themes between the universe, which is what is as maddening as it is. Robbie and I were actually talking about that on the phone the other day about how much fun it is to kind of link everything up together.
That might be a modern iteration of it right there.
Yeah.
Bobby, thank you for the gifted podcast memberships, and congratulations to all the winners. Thank you, Bobby.
That's a good point, Robbie. Yeah, and I do. I love the fact that we can kind of work within the same universe together and give people good little Easter eggs all the time. It's fun, man.
I love those little Easter egg tie-ins.
I do too, man. I've already figured some stuff out for the next couple of books. have it written down in my outlines.
Heck yeah.
Like finding certain things around certain things next that were alluded to.
Yeah, there's some callbacks to not only my books but to Robbie's as well. So Be looking for those little subtle details because
Yeah.
they're there.
Robbie, I got a couple of things, so you might need to text me on that. So,
But we can get off on a tangent talking about the books for hours.
oh yeah,
I'm gonna try to drag this back to the topic at hand. But the Sangre de if the Sangre de Cristos hold a people older than the trails, and if those people are watching the ridges like sentinels, then the disappearances kind of take on a different meaning, because the Stenale are not watching us; they're watching the mountains, and whatever they're watching for, it's still out there. Robbie, you want to take us into segment 5?
Yes, sir. The Stenale, the pale watchers of the high timber. When you trace the sightings across centuries, the Spanish journals, the Ute, what was that other one again?
Ute
The Ute and the Jicarilla.
Ute
the
Jicarilla.
Jicarilla, yeah. What they said.
Just pronounce the J like an H, and then it's pretty much common.
You're wanting that's a tall order for me. Yeah. Oh, the frontier disappearances, the modern case files. You eventually reach a point where the patterns stop being a mystery and start becoming a profile. A profile of people who have lived in the Sangre de Cristos longer than any settlement, longer than any recorded history, longer than the names carved into the maps. A people the tribes knew, a people the Spanish feared, a people the settlers avoided, a people modern hikers glimpse only by accident. They're called the Stenale. The name comes from an old Ute term, one that roughly translates into watchers in the high timber. Not spirits, not ghosts, not animals, a clan, a lineage, a mountain people who have adapted to the thin air, the steep ridges, and the cold that settles like iron across the slopes. Descriptions across cultures match with eerie precision. Tall, lean, pale as stone in moonlight, eyes that reflect light like an animal's, but with a focus that feels unsettlingly human.
There you go.
Thank you. Arms slightly longer than ours. Movement that is silent, even on loose rock. A posture that suggests caution, not aggression, observation, not predation. They do not come down into the valleys. They do not approach camps. They do not vocalize unless forced. They do not leave tracks unless they choose to. They stay in the high timber. They stay on the ridges. They stay in places where the land drops away fast and the shadows stretch long. Every culture that encountered them described them the same way, or with the same behavior. They watch, not with curiosity, not with hunger, but with awareness, with intelligence, and with the quiet confidence of something that knows the mountains better than we ever will. The Stenale are not myth. They're not legend. They are people who have survived by staying unseen, by keeping to the timberline, and by avoiding the world below. And here's the part that should make every listener pause for a minute. The Stenale do not fear us. They avoid us. There's a difference. Fear is reactive. Avoidance is strategic. They know where we are. They know where we travel. And they know the sound of our boots, the smell of our camps, the glow of our headlamps cutting through the dark. They choose to remain in the shadows. But every once in a while, when the balance shifts, when the land changes, when something disturbs the quiet order of the high country, they step closer to the tree line. They watch from the ridges. They let themselves be seen, not by accident, not by mistake, but by choice. Miguel's encounter wasn't random. The Spanish sightings weren't hallucinations. The tribal warnings weren't superstition, and the frontier stories weren't exaggerations. They were glimpses, moments where the Stenale allowed themselves to be noticed. And the more you study the pattern, the more the truth becomes impossible to ignore. They have been here all along, watching and waiting, guarding the high timber. And whatever else lives in those mountains, whatever else moves in the deep shadows, the Stenale have seen it too.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, what is it they're seeing?
That, my friend, is the question. The $1 million question.
Because
You
over
have-
the last 300 or 400 years, a lot of folks have gone missing in those mountains.
Yep. That. There's got to be a reason why. Got to be something taking them.
So,
Hillary says, "How is that spelled?" I put it up in the chat once. I'll throw it back up, and I'll throw it in the chat again. It's got a couple little accent marks in it, so there you go. I'm throwing it into the chat again. There you go. It's pronounced Stenale, and so it. At least that's the way I was told to me by my buddy. He said it's Stenale with kind of the emphasis on the middle syllable. Stenale.
Well, now.
But it certainly explains a lot of weirdness in those mountains. And the Sangre de Cristos, there's just something about those mountains. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a rugged beauty to the Rockies. I've always been partial to the Rockies. But there's just a different feeling in the Sangre de Cristos.
Yeah. You're right.
Those mountains are old. Those
Yeah,
mountains are full of memory, and it's almost like they have a life of their own.
I say they got their own energy up there, man. You know, this is something funny. Is like, could this be, you know, watchers of the hunters, or hunters of the watchers, or watchers of the watchers? I don't know, but it's interesting because it's almost like there's a whole nother subset of civilization up there. And in civilization, I use that very loosely, but you know what I mean. It's like there's a whole. It's like there's two different species up there. You know what I mean?
Miss Lene's worried. Well, I think the only one that might be a problem for is Doc, because he's close to the mountains.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
you got more than 2 guns.
Yeah.
You are correct, sir.
Maybe 3. Yeah.
Couple.
Within 3 inches of him, he's got 3.
Oh, I thought you meant on me.
What? Oh, goodness. Good night, Lyle. Thank you for joining. Good to have you. I hope it was good to be had. Yeah, that's interesting, man. It's like there's something else up there. Are they protectors? Are they predators or what? You know what I mean?
I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. Because something that big's got to eat something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, and you know, not to get into certain storylines, but I think very soon it's going to be hinted at that, much like we've surmised of, and Doc even mentioned it earlier, you know, there's more than one species that it may all be in one genus, but it branches out. I think there might be, just like, you know, the cannibals in parts of the Amazon River Basin and things like that. They're humans.
Right.
They, actively eat other humans. Don't mean they're not humans.
Still do.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
You're just different.
yeah, it doesn't change. So if there are multiple groups of Stenale up there, some of them may be just watchers, but some of them may be a little bit on the ornery side, shall we say?
Yeah, they probably are friendly.
And maybe the ones that are watching, they're watching that other tribe, kind of like, you know, what did you and I do in our careers, DA?
Yeah. We sheepdogged against the ones that were violent.
I'm not saying they're sheepdogging for us, but maybe they're sheepdogging for their groups.
themselves. Yeah.
Their,
You know,
their tribe.
if you're a part of a reclusive society and you wanted to keep the guys with the bang sticks from coming up and messing with that society, you'd want to police your own to keep them at your altitude. Tell them, hey, you leave those little guys alone because they come in numbers.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's it's instead of just one tribe where they're all the same and they all have different villages, for lack of a better term. Their society is kind of like ours. Not everybody in our society is a criminal. Not everybody in our society is a good, upstanding person too. Just like we have watchers, i.e. law enforcement, who take care of the ones that do things they're not supposed to do. Maybe they have the same type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at bears. I mean, you've got bears, some that are pretty docile and some that are just plain mean. That grizzly man fellow found that out.
Mm-hmm.
Hard way.
Yeah, he did.
And,
Yes, he did.
well over 250 species of sharks. Not every one of them is dangerous to humans.
True.
But the ones who are, that's the ones you hear about.
Just like snakes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like snakes. Nope ropes.
Satan strings.
That's
But not
right.
every one of them are dangerous to humans.
Yeah. Some of them are actually kind of beneficial. I mean, we used to, when I was a kid down in New Mexico, we used to catch king snakes and let them loose in the barn. Why? Because they ate rattlesnakes.
Correct, sir.
And rats who would feed on
And rats.
hay and feed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They keep that stuff out.
Yeah,
Yep.
my daddy had whooped our butts. He said, "Don't you ever kill a king snake, son."
Yeah.
We used to go out in the field and catch them and let them loose in the barn.
Yeah, they're your protectors, dude.
I remember when I was a kid, Pa sent me to the corn crib to get some hay or get some feed for one of the cows. I opened the door and there's a black snake sitting there, and I had a stick in my hand. He was walking up behind me, and I was getting ready. I was just a kid. It was an open door. Here's a snake out, and I was going, "Hey, don't you do that, boy." He said, "That keeps the rats out of there. Keeps the other snakes out of there. You leave that snake alone." I'm like,
So,
"Yes, sir."
so could they be considered watchers of the watchers?
Yeah. Yeah. They're not necessarily out to do good to us. It just, it happens to be a
Beneficial to
byproduct
them?
of what they do.
Yeah, maybe beneficial to them. They
Yeah.
don't really care about us. It's more about beneficial to them or not.
Right. So folks, tonight we followed the encounters, we've traced the history, we've mapped the pattern, and now we've named the watchers who've lived in the Sangre de Cristos longer than any of us. Naming them's just the beginning. Because the Stenole, they're not the only presence in those mountains. They're simply the ones we see. The ones who stand at the edge of the timberline, the ones who watch the ridges and the ravines like sentinels. And if the watchers are real, then what are they watching for? So we're going to be coming full circle here. The Sangre de Cristo Mountains have always kept their secrets close. But if you follow that trail long enough, through the archives, through the journals, through the stories whispered around campfires, a picture starts to form. A picture older than settlements, older than the trails, older than the names carved into the maps. Tonight we walked that trail. We revisited the brittle pages of the Santa Fe Gazette, where travelers were warned to avoid the timberline after dusk. We opened Kit Carson's private journal, where he admitted, in his own hand, that he saw a pale figure watching from the ridge near the Ponil. We traced the warnings of the Ute and the Jicarilla Apache, who spoke of mountain people who walked only where the trees thinned and the air grew thin and sharp. We looked at the strange final chapter from the 1923 ethnographic book Uncatalogued Peoples of the Southern Rockies, where an author tried to catalog a clan he never saw but couldn't really dismiss. And then we followed the doomed path of a Spanish expedition, the men who abandoned at least one wagon load of gold in the high country after a night they refused to describe. All of them, separated by centuries, cultures, and languages, they all describe the same presence. tall, pale, silent, watching from the timberline. The Stinale. A mountain people, a clan older than the trails, a lineage shaped by the thin air country where most humans don't linger. Not spirits, not myths, not monsters. A people. A people who avoid us not out of fear, but out of choice. A people who watch the ridges like sentinels. A people who have seen every expedition, every traveler, every lost soul who wandered too far into the high timber. And here's the truth that ties all of this together. The Stinale aren't the threat. They're the warning. They're the ones who stand between the deep shadows and the world below. They're the ones who know what else moves in those mountains. And they're the ones that have watched the Sangre de Cristos change century after century without ever stepping out of the timberline. So when you hear the old stories, the Gazette articles, the Carson entries, the tribal warnings, the abandoned wagon of gold, remember this. They weren't describing ghosts. They weren't describing legends. They were describing neighbors we never truly understood. Neighbors who have been here longer than any of us. Neighbors who still walk the ridges when the wind dies and the forest goes still. And if the watchers are real, then the mountains are holding more secrets than we dared to imagine. So folks, if you enjoyed this journey into the strange and hidden tonight, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And if you want to support the show directly, get early access, behind-the-scenes content, and help keep these investigations alive, consider becoming a channel member. Your support keeps the lights on, the mics hot, and the search moving forward. So until next time, folks, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, not everything in those mountains is human. So boys, as we wind things down tonight, we always want to mention our affiliate program. We have some wonderful affiliates. We've talked about our books numerous times. You can know the links have been popping up for us and for Luca. You can check all of those books out on Amazon, they're in Kindle, audio, and in print. They're all available. The links have been been popping up periodically throughout the night, and I've even put them up on the screen. But tonight we're going to take just a minute to say a little bit about our the good folks that have sponsored the channel and have been friends of the channel from the beginning. And long before he was an author, long before he first put pen to paper, he was a combat medic who was already saving lives. And Doc came back from tours in the sandbox and created a company called Dark Angel Medical with 211 confirmed life saves to date. Oh, there's more. Is there 212 now?
212.
212. 212 people still alive today because of the efforts of this man right here. So, Doc, take us a second here and tell us a little bit about Dark Angel Medical.
All right. First, I'm going to tell you all about save number 212. Save number 212 just got reported to me 2 days ago by a good chief deputy constable of mine in Williamson County, Texas, out near Austin. And one of the students that I taught on that department ended up using one of our kits and using a tourniquet to save a guy's life who had cut himself very badly with a chainsaw. So, and the doctor said, had he not done that, performed that intervention, he would have most certainly perished. So, number one, if you got a chainsaw, get you some chainsaw chaps. And number two, get you a med kit from Dark Angel Medical. And who is Dark Angel Medical? Well, go to www.darkangelmedical.com and check us out, because we sell minor trauma all the way up to major trauma, up to mass trauma. Types of medical kits for your vehicles, for your ankles, for your belts, for your gun belts, for your cars, for your European shoulder bags, whatever they may be. But we also not only give you the kit, the tools, we also give you the training. So we have a training calendar going through the United States this year. Check on our training schedule. If we have something near you, sign up for the class, because once you get that kit and you get that training, you might what, Robbie? You might be
the difference.
You might be the difference. So yeah, and all our kits are HSA, FSA eligible. You can pay over time using Sezzle, and if you use coupon code Cryptid20, you save 20% off of your order. And we'd appreciate all of y'all heading over there. It's been rough last couple of years, and so not sad sacking or anything like that, but We're a veteran-owned business, disabled-owned, service-connected veteran, disabled veteran-owned business, and every person that comes there and purchases something, that's another birthday in a box that we get to pack, and that's another chance of you being a difference in somebody's life. And if you use something that we sell to save somebody's life, let us know, and we'll replace it 100% free of charge. That's called our Kit for Life Guarantee. So we thank y'all very much, and we pray that y'all never have to use it.
Absolutely. But it's like a parachute. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Because if you ever need it and don't have it, you may never need it again.
Amen to that. You only go skydiving once without one.
It ain't the fall that gets you at that sudden stop at the bottom.
It's that sudden stop. Thank you, Northwoods. I appreciate that.
I've got one in my range bag that I take to the range. I've got one in my go bag that I carry when we go out in the woods. I've got one on my gun belt. I keep those kits handy.
I appreciate
one on my pack.
Robbie,
Yes,
do you have one of those leather pouches on hand?
I can go grab it right quick if you want me to.
Could you while we talk about the next sponsor?
Surely.
Well, Doc, since you're the most eloquent of the group, you want to tell us a little bit about the good folks over at Scallywag Tactical and Craig Burhart and his awesome people?
Scallywag Tactical is another veteran-owned small business. Craig Burhart owns it. They have a lot of different blades out there. If you are on their website, man, I don't think they don't have the blemish section anymore, unfortunately. But
yeah, they did away with that.
Yeah, they have anything from this small little mini jack that I've got. DA's got, what's that one, the Orca?
No, this one is, I can't remember what it's called. I don't even think I've got, this one's the Jolly Roger.
Jolly Roger, yeah.
But this one, I can't remember what it's called.
If
so many of them, I can't keep the name straight.
They do have a lot of knives, and so does DA. If you head over to Scallywag Tactical, use the code DA Roberts 10, and that will get you 10% off of their blades. Great blades, great people, great Americans, and great pricing on a great quality blade. So head over to Scallywag Tactical. And just so this is something that we're going to be coming out with on a very limited basis for all of you Old West enthusiasts. It's a Meg kit. So it's it fits on the back of a belt, and it's got a tourniquet. It's going to have a mini compression bandage, 12 feet of quick clot, 12 feet of regular gauze, a Mylar blanket. It's going to have gloves. It's going to have a good bit of stuff in there. We're going to call that our Dark Frontiersman. So you can thank DA and Robbie for the naming convention on that. So that's going to be coming out on our website at darkangelmedical.com sometime in the next couple of weeks. So remember, get a kit, get trained, and be the difference.
Damn right. And Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about the good folks over at Sigwo Arms?
Oh, y'all can thank Robbie for the engraving on that. He did a fantastic job on that.
Very nice, Clark.
Really, really nice, Clark.
Sigwo or Scallywag? I couldn't hear who.
Doc did Scallywag. Go ahead and do Sigwo.
Sigwo is our newest affiliate, but DA has been doing business with them for a pretty good long while now. They're a local company in Springfield, and they do everything from you just want to go in and just buy a gun that you've seen. They can do that. Or if you got an idea for a gun that you want built, they can do that. They make their own ammunition in-house. They also do the laser engraving stuff too, and they're the only ones that are licensed to do the Dark Frontiers and the Wild Hunt logos on your guns. They also do Cerakoting, I believe, too, DA.
Mm-hmm. They do Cerakoting as well.
Cerakoting. I mean, they pretty much are a one-stop shop when it comes to anything that has to do with firearms. They've even got blades there. They got whisper pickles. I mean, pretty much anything that has to do with shooting, you can get there.
And the Codys are very knowledgeable.
Yep. Yeah, they are. They know their stuff. So you can check them out online at sigwoarms.com. Use code Bigfoot5 to get yourself 5%, or is it 10%?
5% off your order. But if you're a first responder or a veteran,
you get an extra 5%, so you can get 10%. If you're a first responder or a veteran, tell them we sent you, and go check them out. They're an awesome company.
Yes, sir.
they sure are. And they've got everything from really good deals on Freedom seeds for your cordless, distribution device, right up to the devices themselves, along with Whisper pickles of your choice, and optics. They've got a big line of optics. Just a great group of guys over there. And if they ain't got it, they'll find it. Yeah, and if you can imagine it, they can build it. They've got an entire machine shop attached to the store. Mm-hmm. They make some pretty amazing stuff. I'll probably be going over there tomorrow, in fact. Well, no, not tomorrow, Monday. But anyway, folks, really appreciate you guys sticking around. Appreciate you guys patiently waiting for us to be back. Be honest, I needed to take some time to clear my head. I'd gotten behind on my writing. I'd gotten stressed out to the point I was about to snap, and I really needed to clear my head. And one thing we've said is that don't be afraid to reach out. And these two turkeys were on me pretty good about me not talking enough. And I'm glad they were. I've had other people reach out as well. But folks, just remember, we all go through dark times. And that's why, I'm such a big supporter of the 22 a Day Foundation and groups like the Till Valhalla Project, Mission22.org, because we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So reach out to your friends and family that are first responders. Reach out to your loved ones that have worn a uniform. I don't care what capacity,
Amen.
Because everybody that's served deserves that chance to have someone to be there for them. And even if our government's not doing enough, we can do enough for each other. So reach out, let them know you think about them, let them know you care, invite them over for a beer. Call them an a-hole. If you're a veteran, that's your love language. The stuff we say to each other in private, most people, if we said that to a person we just met, they'd think we hated them. But that's just how old warriors talk to one another. But reach out to them again. Ask them over for a beer. Call them an idiot. Whatever you got to do. But reach out and let them know you care. Because at least 22 times a day, they're losing that battle. So don't let them fight those demons alone, and don't let the hard days win. And folks, as we wind her down, I want to thank you guys again for being part of the Nightmare Nation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Doesn't cost you but a moment of your time to share the channel and let people know that who enjoy this type of content. Help get our name out there. Help us continue to grow and get the word out there. And we're going to continue to bring you this kind of content, hopefully for a good long time to come. So tonight, I'm gonna end it with a moment where we'll remove our hats, and simply because he talks so pretty. Doc, would you take us out with the toast tonight? Doesn't matter what you guys are drinking. Could be water, could be soda. It could be anything at all.
Can you post it up for flavor?
Yes. Let me get over to the banners.
He may talk pretty, but his memory don't work too good sometimes.
No, it does not. That's just ugly, Robbie. That's just ugly. I abhor ugliness. All right, y'all. So if you would, raise your glass, send up a good vibe, send up a prayer, send up some good smoke. This is a line from my Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass, and it's not about what we lost, but it's about what we love. So, but since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be to you all. Slanjava. Thank you, folks.
Slanjava, and we'll see you guys next time.
Plains, the winds are howling. howling, saloon doors swinging, shadows growling. Three lawmen stand tough as rawhide. Yeah, Doc and DA, nothing can abide. Whiskey shots and poker faces, staring down the darkest spaces in this town where legends roam. These boys bring justice, sending evil home. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Jed's a howler, claws of steel. Doc's a biter, makes the devil real. But DA's a shifty one, a shape-shifting soul. Can turn to anything, takes any form, takes control. Tonight the chupacabras come to town, sucking the life from all around. But these lawmen, they ain't afraid. They'll face the darkness unafraid. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Full moon rises, bat wings flap, the air grows cold, a chill and trap. But these lawmen, they're ready to fight underneath the pale moonlight. Jed and Doc transform with a howl. DA shifts, becomes a night owl. Together they stand, a force so strong against the evil right in the wrong. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the end.